Hello and welcome to a Smaulgld special report on the FISA memo, the Republican memo, and the Democratic memo, all in connection with the spying on the Trump campaign. Dripping evidence of FBI, DOJ, Clinton, Obama collusion will turn into a tidal wave. Irrefutable evidence is growing that the unverified and salacious Steele dossier was the basis for the FISA warrant to spy on the Trump campaign. Further evidence shows that information was obtained from Russian sources and the Clinton campaign. Mainstream media continues to ignore the evidence and insists it's just a diversion from the Russian investigation. Trump refused to declassify the Democratic response memo, and Uranium One is back in focus. Let's take a look at what's going on there. So just before we get into the events in the week, I just want to note that there's a significant difference about what's going on here. The argument that the Trump campaign colluded with the Russians has been based so far on saying that Jeff Sessions stood next to a Russian, talked to a Russian, that's why he had to recuse himself. Donald Trump Jr. took a meeting with a Russian, spoke to some Russian. But there's a huge difference between these types of anecdotal encounters with Russians and the Democratic National Committee paying $10 million for a dossier with information that was partially obtained from Russians, a dossier from which, according to sources, they added information to it and then forwarded it to the FBI, which FBI top brass was investigating their candidate, Hillary Clinton, for felonious mishandling of classified information, and then having those people in the FBI, those agents, Sally Yates and FBI Director Comey, sign off on that information as the basis for a FISA court warrant to spy on the Trump campaign. Those are all seemingly facts in the public domain that are irrefutable. Yet, nearly all the mainstream media outlets, they do not analyze this information in the Republican memo or make any attempt to refute it. They simply state it's politically motivated. Sometimes they say it's paranoia. It's designed to deflect information or deflect from the Russian investigation. Now, that all may be true, but that doesn't mean the information in the memo is inaccurate. So, for example, if someone's on trial for murder, and their alibi is that they weren't at the murder scene at the time of the murder, and they bring forth a witness who says that they were with them 70 miles away. Well, a good argument isn't, oh, he's just bringing that up because he's trying to get off murder charges. Well, of course he's trying to get off murder charges. The fact that he's motivated to get out of the murder charge doesn't mean that you don't listen to the evidence that an eyewitness says he was not at the murder scene. So similarly, just because the Republicans have a political motive and Trump has a political motive to deflect from the Russian investigation doesn't mean that the evidence that they're presenting isn't correct. And that's how I'm starting to realize that this evidence is going to continue to come out, and that if your strategy, when you're in a political battle and your strategy is to change the subject, to avoid talking about the subject, to criticize your opponent as being a Russian or something, it's pretty good evidence or pretty good indication, not evidence, that you don't have a good case. Because if you had a good case, what you would do is you refute each and every point that your opponent makes and you demolish those points. But I've yet to see, after a year now, any evidence of criminal collusion on the Trump side, and I haven't seen any evidence. Now, we haven't seen the Democratic memo yet, but from what the Republicans are saying, there's nothing in there that refutes the evidence that they presented. There's been no evidence shown that the Russian investigation wasn't based on the Russian appointment of the Russian special counsel into the Trump campaign, wasn't based on and wasn't politically motivated on the false information contained in the Steele dossier. Let's take a look now at what happened. Now, there's so much incestuous. If you look at all the players, I really should have done a chart here. We have Rosenstein, Orr, Sally Yates, Comey, Strzok, Page. All of these people are diehard anti-Trumpers. And not only that, they have spouses, Warner, they have spouses that are either involved with the Fusion GPS company, which is the one that produced the Steele dossier. They're very much all in it together against Donald Trump. And not only that, these are the same people, some of them, who investigated Hillary Clinton and seemingly gave her a pass. So the same people that gave Hillary Clinton a pass are foaming at the mouth when they had all the evidence they wanted. If they wanted to be good prosecutors, or not prosecutors, the DOJ only does the investigation. They were far less zealous when they had a lot of red meat to present on Hillary Clinton's, and yet they are chomping at the bit at some phony information in a Steele dossier, which Comey admitted, I don't know, he should have done this, but he admitted it, that the information in that dossier was salacious and unverified. And yet that's what they used to go to the FISA court and get a warrant to spy on the Trump campaign. And now there's stories that Rosenstein, he threatened Nunes in the House Intel if they didn't stop the investigation. So it seems to me that they're not arguing right now. They are not making sound arguments. They are trying to dismiss, intimidate, make sound like there's nothing to see here. And it's interesting, we're going to get to some quotes that I picked up during the week from New York Times reporters, CNBC reporters, where, again, they don't refute. They just start saying that the Republicans, Nunes, Trump, they're all paranoid. Now, if you're partisan, you shake your head, say, yeah, they are, Trump's a liar. Okay, even if Trump is a liar, even if they're paranoid, your job as a reporter is not just to call them names. Your job is to say they're paranoid because. Let's take a look at the Steele dossier. Let's take a look at the basis. Oh, no, we can't do that because then it might look like maybe they have a reason to be paranoid. Now, apparently, we're getting these leaks now. The missing text, first of all, the Strzok Page text, the two FBI lovers, they showed a clear hatred for Trump. They also talked about a insurance plan, and then their text went missing. Now, apparently, the Inspector General has them, so we're going to see that report in March. Now, that report is going to go through a lot of what happened during the Clinton investigations, to be very thorough, and that one's going to be hard to refute because presumably that was written by the Department of Justice, not by the Republicans. And remember, what we're seeing here is a very interesting dynamic where the Democrats are promoting law enforcement as patriotic when they're the ones who generally, if there's any political hay to be made about bashing law enforcement, they're the first one to do it. But in this case, they're on the side of it, and if you somehow attack or question FBI or CIA, you're being anti-American, and worse, you could be even a Russian. Now, this first memo that came out, the Republican memo, which laid forth just in 4 pages, the premise that the FISA court warrant was obtained on the basis largely not only of just the Steele dossier, but of information from the Steele dossier that Steele himself fed to Yahoo reporters and other reporters. So they took the Steele dossier, presented to the FISA court, and then they said, look at these news reports. They say the same thing. It's kind of a circular way of looking at it. So much to the point where even the FBI thought that they had to fire Steele as an informant because he broke their rule of you're not supposed to be giving the FBI secret information as an informant and then also be leaking that to the press. But this is just the beginning of information that's going to come out. The Democrats have now been forced into releasing a memo, which I really want to see because I want to see how they refute that the Steele dossier was not the basis for the Russian investigation, that they actually had more information of Russian collusion. And that's why they went into the FISA court with all that information. Remember, the way I look at things, as you know from my analysis of gold and silver, I am not looking at this in any partisan way. I am trying to look at it objectively. I would like to see evidence of Russian collusion if there was Russian collusion. But also, the reason I'm suspicious that there isn't any is what the FBI, first of all, the FBI refused to hand over information. The Democrats, Schiff himself, tried to block information from going to the Intel Committee. This actually looks like a cover-up, and the way they're trying to present themselves is that it's not a cover-up, it's the other side is trying to cause a diversion from an actual real investigation for which they've yet to show any real evidence of collusion. Now, Comey, very interesting, said the memo was dishonest and misleading. He also said, this is the head of the FBI who exonerated Hillary Clinton. He also said when it came out, that's it. Now, he didn't refute what was in it. He just said, that's it, almost scoffing at it. But again, this is he's the one he didn't say, I didn't present this information to the FISA court based on the Steele dossier. He just mocked the fact that the Republicans basically said what he did, and what he did, if you're looking at it objectively, should easily be a violation. He misled the FISA court. Now, Barack Obama, I've been saying this for 3 years. Finally, it looks like the Congress and the media, or the I guess it's Fox and other alternative media, are starting to look at Obama, Mark Levin as well. That's right, I said it. They're starting to look at the involvement of Obama. Now, when the Hillary Clinton email issue arose, the first thing I thought of was, I wonder if Obama was getting emails from this private server under this pseudonym. No one mentioned that. No one cared. And I thought, if she's in trouble, then he's in bigger trouble, under the Latin legal term of respondeat superior, which means that the master is in charge of his charge, meaning that Hillary Clinton reported to him, and he's responsible. So, for example, if you own a trucking company, and your trucker, drives around and runs into people, and you had reason to believe that he's a lunatic and you hired him anyway, you're just as responsible for his reckless behavior. Well, it's the same with Mr. Obama. Now, he came out and said that Hillary's done nothing wrong. Well, okay. How do you know that? So my idea has been all along that nothing happens. These aren't just rogue FBI agents, DOJ. They report directly to the president. Hillary Clinton reported directly to him as Secretary of State. Loretta Lynch reported to him. And Bill Holder, what's his name? Holder, he said he was Obama's wingman. These are people that are working with loyalty to the president. Now, either they were told by the president to do certain things, or even if they weren't told, just because they're zealous people, they went and did certain things that Obama either had to be aware of, because either he told them to, or they told him he did them, or if they didn't tell him that they had done these things, that he should know what they're doing. So either way, I don't see how you get the president out of any wrongdoing unless there was some type of massive cover-up to prevent him from finding out things that they were doing, in which case, then he should be very annoyed and go after them. However, the struck page texts indicate that Obama wanted to know everything that was going on. And here's Trump's reaction to the 4-page memo released. It says, a disturbing fact about how the FBI and FISA appear to have used influence in the 2006 election and its aftermath. The FBI failed to inform the FISA court that the Clinton campaign had funded the dossier. You can call Trump a liar all you want, but refute that fact that the Clinton campaign did not pay for the dossier through the Perkins-Coie law firm for the information. Now, since then, they've shown that information got added to the dossier through the State Department. Okay, so this is what I want to see. Again, if none of this is true, then I want to see the evidence refuting it, because this appears to be the basis on which they started the whole Russian investigation. There's Rince Penis. We're not going to cover him today in his stories. Now here's just a point. Rod Rosenstein's wife worked for the Clinton Foundation. Bruce Orr's wife worked for Fusion GPS on the Steele dossier. That's FBI agent Bruce Orr. Andrew McCabe's wife ran for the Senate with money donated by Terry McAuliffe. And Peter Strzok, we all know about him. And this guy says, sure, if DOJ and FBI are not politicized. This is what happens when you have one party or a monolithic Democratic Republican Party all working together, and they just become ingrained in these bureaucracies. Now, what's interesting is the Democrats are saying when you attack these, quote, institutions, you're undermining our democracy, which, if you thought about it for more than a second, you'd realize is ridiculous, because democracy, if you believe in democracy, you believe in the Democratic officials, the Democratic elected representatives to look after interests, not institutions like the FBI, the DOJ, the State Department, and so on. Indeed, you look to your democratically elected representatives to have oversight over these institutions. And what the Democrats are saying, no way the Republicans shouldn't have, or no Congress should have. They shouldn't be questioning the DOJ and the FBI. That's undemocratic. It's a threat to our democracy. In fact, it's Russian. That doesn't make any sense. And again, that means I think they don't have a good argument. They don't want you questioning them. Because indeed, if the FBI or DOJ was going after Lizzie Warren or Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton, in fact, when they do go after Hillary Clinton, you're going to hear how it's politicized, and rightfully they should be. They should have people looking out for them to make sure that the DOJ and the FBI are not being used for political purposes. That goes for the IRS or any other governmental agency, Commerce Department. But here's the point. House Intel Committee could drop 5 more memos exposing politically motivated abuses. Now, we're hearing from Nunes, we're hearing from Jordan and the other congressmen on the committee. There's a lot more information. They wanted to put more out, but they're putting it out in piecemeal. It's interesting, this guy here, McCain, there was stories back when he had the dossier and he was trying to get the FBI to act on it. So this guy right here, he is not in favor of the Trump. He's definitely working against, as is Jeff Flake, both from Arizona. And the thing with McCain is he wanted to put together a budget that didn't include the wall. So he's basically the opposition. He's part of la résistance, the resistance against Trump. Now, what they do want to have is an investigation into the investigation. Now, this should never be necessary unless there is abuse. So they want to see whether the FBI and the DOJ, there's 2 things they need to do, is whether the FBI, and you'll probably see a lot of this in the Inspector General's report when it comes out in March, whether the DOJ, the FBI, the way they handled the Clinton email was done properly, not just from the perspective of how the DOJ ran the investigation by giving immunity to certain people, not requiring, not looking further to find the missing emails, having knowledge that they were bleach bitted and smashed with hammers, all of that, but also the part where the Department of Justice was almost granted DOJ status because Loretta Lynch had met with Bill Clinton on the tarmac, and therefore that gave the DOJ the ability to say, we're not just going to present evidence to the DOJ, we're not going to present that evidence because now we know that Loretta Lynch can't be trusted to make a proper. So what we'll do is we'll make a recommendation, and then Loretta Lynch will say, well, we'll do whatever the FBI says, and the FBI says don't do anything. No reasonable prosecutor would ever bring a case on these facts, which is complete nonsense. Even with the investigation, which appears to be very partisan, very geared towards getting Hillary Clinton off, there still was enough information in that report to prosecute Hillary Clinton, and they didn't. So the Democrats want to get their memo out, and it was telegraphed in advance that their memo would contain confidential information, and therefore it would give Trump the ability to stop it, and then the Democrats could claim, see, he's trying to obstruct justice and so on, he's not going to get it out. All he did was he said, and we knew it was going to happen, that they would put stuff in there that would compromise sources and methods so that Trump would have to say, send it back. So he sent it back, and I anticipate they'll make the necessary changes. What's interesting with the Republican memo is only the Republicans voted to release it. The Democrats did, but everyone on the Republican side voted to release the Democratic memo because I'm sure they realize there's nothing in there that refutes their memo. Now, this Christopher Steele guy, he's supposed to show up in a civil case. He doesn't show up. So this guy is famous. He didn't want to be. He just hated Trump, and now he's at the center. And one day, I suppose, he'll be hauled in front of Congress. We'll see what happens. Now, here's Trey Gowdy talking about Rod Rosenstein, who's now the deputy director of the FBI. He's saying he's the mastermind behind giving Mueller broad jurisdiction in the Russian witch hunt. Okay, what else do we got here? So here's what I was talking about with Obama. This is FBI lovers text message. This is Peter Strzok and Page include, first of all, they included stuff about eliminating their text messages, say Obama wants to know everything. And there's Mr. Obama. I don't know anything. Some folks sent some text. Folks sent some text. A lot on that story there. There it is, folks. Folks sending texts. Well, I had a lot there. And here, Trump says FBI texts are bombshells. And then Mr. Obama said, I guarantee there's no political influence in any investigation conducted by the Justice Department or the FBI. Not just in this case, but in any case. Period. Yeah, period, my eye. And nobody gets treated differently. Yeah, okay, no one's above the law. All those nice things to say that make you sound like you're fair and judicious. Now, here's more evidence, or indication. More indication. Well, now that we're down here, we might as well do it, but we'll have to go back up. It's James Clapper. He calls the Nunes memo a hit job to attack the FBI and the DOJ. Now, okay, maybe it's a hit job, but what in it isn't correct? That to me is the biggest indication that there's something there. Yeah, sure. If the impact is that it's going to undermine the FBI and the DOJ, obviously, that's what it does. But does it do it with the facts, with the evidence? If it does, so be it. That's what it is. But you see, he's just calling it a hit job. And once you call it a hit job, and you've laid the groundwork that if you attack the DOJ and the FBI, you're against law enforcement, you're against their democracy, you're Russian, well, then you go out there and you say it's a hit job. I see what's going on here. These are indications that they don't have an argument to refute it, that they have to characterize things in the way I just described. And there's Obama. Period. I want to know everything. Now, we had the funny thing about Schiff. Two things. He spoke to Russian comedians or Ukrainian comedians who said they had pictures of naked Trump, and he wanted to get them. Then he claimed he knew all along it was a joke. Nonsense. He had his staff follow up with them trying to get the information. Then also Schiff appeared on Russian television, which is a tool of the Kremlin. And he was on there talking in 2013 about how we needed greater transparency in Pfizer warrant applications, which right now he's saying we can't allow that at all. There's Tucker Carlson. Here's funny. National Enquirer. Everybody mocks the National Enquirer, and they do have things like moon babies ate my dog and things like that. But they had a headline here: Obama and Hillary ordered FBI to spy on Trump. Could be true. You don't know. And again, I want to find out. Now, this made a bit of a stir this week. Rachel Brand's successor to Rosenstein is expected to resign. Now, she's going to resign and go work at Walmart. I don't know if that's a natural progression to go from the Attorney General's office to the Walmart, but that's what she's going to do. And they're concerned there that they're all talking about how she's a woman of integrity and she'd never do what Trump wants her to do, but she was appointed by Trump. So I'm not sure how significant that news is, or whether Rosenstein will even be fired. He may step down, just as that other guy did, McCabe, once he realizes that the focus is going to be on his behavior. And there was some very interesting congressional testimony by him where he couldn't give straight answers, and he looked like he was covering things up in his interviews with Trey Gowdy and a couple of other members of Congress. So watch for a focus on Rosenstein. And I think what Trump wants to do is not fire anybody. He just wants the pressure to build and the evidence to build, so they will step down, and that would include Mueller. Now, Mike Cernovich said that it was a mistake of Donald Trump to take the bait on the Democratic memo and agreeing to release it. And I thought, no, I don't think it was a mistake. I think he did it on purpose, knowing that he'd have to reject it, knowing that they'd have to change it. But more importantly, if it ends up that it doesn't get out and they can't make amends to it, one of the things that I am positive through the NSA that the Trump administration now has is evidence of Adam Schiff leaving congressional meetings, going to the bathroom, and leaking. And then also disseminating information from the Congressional Intelligence Committee meetings to the press. Because remember, one of the things that I learned, I heard that when you send text messages or email messages, apparently the NSA in Utah captures it as it's being sent. So it doesn't have to it can reach its destination, and then you can delete it from your device, and the recipient can delete it from their device, and then you can delete all backup copies. But when it went out in the air, the NSA captured it. And I believe there are people at the NSA who have this information. This isn't even a Pfizer court warrant. I think that they have this, and they're looking to get Adam Schiff on this. And again, if Adam Schiff is found to have been leaking this information, he will be brought down immediately. And if he's brought down immediately, that kind of undercuts the Democratic Intelligence Committee investigation. And then I think you'll get more and more information out there. And I really do believe that more evidence will come out there, to the point, and I saw this during Watergate. I remember I lived through it. Republicans were denying that Richard Nixon did anything wrong. Now, the media, on the other hand, was saying that everything he did was wrong. And they were right. They had investigative reporters like Woodward and Bernstein. But the average American was convinced that there was just a witch hunt. And even the Republicans, who probably knew better, were defending the president. But it got to the point in the summer of 1974. I remember this, where it just collapsed, and the Republicans just said, okay, too many people know too many things. We can't keep defending this president. And that's when Nixon resigned, because he knew, even the diehard Republicans, I think he had 22 votes, that would be it, that would not vote, it would not work against him. And I think you're going to see that with the Democrats. You won't see the diehards ever saying Trump was right. You won't see them ever admitting that the FBI let off Hillary Clinton. You won't, but you will see the middle collapse. And they won't, if there's more evidence that comes out at some point, no one wants to be on the losing side. The only people that don't mind being on the losing side are those people who are diehard leftists or diehard rightists. And they just view that as a badge of honor, as going down with the ship. But I think that Trump knows all this stuff. He knows who's the leaker. He actually called Comey a leaker, and Comey admitted he was a leaker, but he actually called, well, let me find the email here. Yeah, the tweet that he put out, he called, here it is, right there. Where are you, Donald? There you go. Little Adam Schiff, who is desperate to run for higher office, is one of the biggest liars and leakers in Washington. Now, first of all, that's defamation. If you call somebody not so much a liar, I mean, you might be able to make a case. When you say somebody has leaked something, not you suspect they leaked something, you're pretty much, the truth is now your affirmative defense, and I think he knows this. Right up there, and then he says, Comey, Warner, who's another senator, Brennan and Clapper, these are CIA directors. He's basically going right after the top brass, and he's saying that these people have been leaking. Adam leaves closed committee hearing to illegally leak confidential information. Doesn't say he's suspected of doing it. It says he leaves closed committee hearings. Now, it's true. There's circumstantial evidence that he's done that, because while the meeting's going on, you find out what they're talking about. Now, if he was the only guy to leave the meeting, well, it's logic that it probably was him. He says must be stopped. People think Trump is a moron, and the thing is, when he puts out these tweets, they sound like lies. They said that the fact that the Trump campaign, Trump Tower, is being bugged, there was no evidence, and everyone was outraged that he would say it. Well, he didn't tweet that because he just decided to throw a bomb into the mix. He knew that, and so he tweeted it. He also knew that other people in the media would think he had no way of knowing. Well, he did know, and that's what happened. So I believe if he's putting this out there, that he thinks that the Clapper and Brennan and Adam Schiff and Comey are leakers, it's because he knows that. And because it's huge political danger to make an accusation like that and then have it not be true. All right, so we're going to expect to see more on this. I really expect to see no refute. Now, if there is some valid refutation of what we see in the Republican memo, obviously I'll report on that. I'm not cheerleading one side or other. I'm cheerleading for finding out what exactly happened. Uranium 1 is back out into the news. There was the guy who was an informant. He had testimony. He basically said this was a pay-to-play scheme with the Clinton Foundation. So we'll see what happens there. That still is a big story. Hasn't gone away. But what's interesting, when that guy gave his testimony to the Senate, Twitter at the top of the search results had a story that doubts surfaced about key witness in Uranium 1 probe of Clinton. First of all, those doubts that surfaced, that story was written in November. So you can see the mainstream media wants to cast doubt. They don't want to directly contradict the facts. They want to just basically say that everything that's going on is politically motivated against the Democrats. I think that's about all we have for today. There's a little Adam Schiff. What else have we got here? Yeah, I mean, it does seem that the Democrats, Hillary and Bill Clinton, were the ones colluding with Russians, at least with respect to the Uranium 1 deal. And Marco Rubio, this is interesting. Now, Marco, what did he tweet? By the way, then Senator Mark Warner also got caught, a la Adam Schiff, trying to arrange a meeting with a Russian oligarch. Again, this is collusion. Now, nothing illegal about it, but the point being is he did nothing more, nothing less. He was trying to get evidence on Trump, which you could call treason, but it's no different than when Republicans meet with Russians as well. Yeah, and then Mark Rubio saying, Senator Warner fully disclosed this to our committee 4 months ago. And then I think one of the great comments was, and you were all right with that? That's fine. That's why they were having a whole investigation into the Trump campaign, because they had reached out to Russians, or supposedly reached out to Russians. Now, another point about Obama, I think his fingerprints will be on this whole thing. And again, we're waiting for the Inspector General's investigation. One last thing. Here are the journalists tweeting their psychological observations rather than this is Maggie Habermas of the New York Times. The Nunes memo and Trump's focus on it in part related to his decades-old belief that people are out to get him and his belief in his hidden hand that impacts all manner of things. Now, she's a psychoanalyst. Why doesn't she analyze what's in the memo? And not why Trump or why Nunes are putting forward the memo, but actually what's in it. And there you're taking these. Now, they're calling it a pillar of society. But they never call law enforcement a pillar of society. They say that they're out to commit harm and brutality all the time. John Harwood, same thing. Here's the guy who was basically working for the Hillary campaign during the debate, asking questions, working with Podesta and so on. And he's basically, what did he say? I mean, he tweeted out similar type of psychobabble about Nunes. I believe he was saying, someone needs to appoint a special counsel to reveal where paranoia stops and partisanship begins. This is the guy who's ultra partisan as a reporter and his job as moderator of the debate. And then finally, the State of Union, Trump called the Democrats un-American and treasonous. Now, he didn't come out and say, I want to bring treason charges against all Democrats who didn't stand. It was in reaction to people saying something in the crowd, and he said, treason, yeah, sure, treason. So basically, Trump trolling again. And there's Dizzy Missile. We're going to go into it anymore. So thank you very much for listening. And later today, we will have the In Case You Missed It Top Gold and Silver Stories and Crypto Stories for the week ended February 11th. Thanks for listening.